Good afternoon and welcome to the Living Well radio program. You can find us here every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATV 89.3 in Anchorage as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also catch us online at katv.org. And don't forget to find us on our Facebook page at Living Well Radio. I actually got the call letters out right this time, Betty.
Yay, Kimmy, go Kimmy.
That KJLP
only took
gets
a year.
me like every third time. Listen, my name is Cammie, and I'm always joined by my co-host, Betty. You always have to say hi to everybody, Betty.
Hi, everybody.
I would hate for anybody to think you weren't here, so I like to make sure that everybody knows Bossy Betty is in the house right from the beginning.
I knew it wouldn't
hilarious.
last. I like the one last week. My best friend, Betty. I like that
That's
much
right.
better than Bossy.
I
was talking to our guest today, Dana, and she said while she was waiting, she was checking Instagram. And I said, oh, did you happen to check out hashtag Bossy Betty?
Oh, no.
So I had to explain that.
I'll have to later.
Yes, for sure, for sure. Well, we are excited. We've got a great show lined up for you today. We have joining us Dana with Mosaic Campus Ministry at UAA right here in our backyard. We've got this ministry going on. And so once again, just wanting to bring exposure to what is available and just how you're ministering to students and what is all available through that ministry. So welcome to the show, Dana.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's awesome to have you. If you could, just tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what your role is with this ministry.
Okay, well, we're transplants from South Louisiana, so we're fairly new to Alaska. We've been here since September of 2013, so you probably hear the Southern in my accent.
Sure do.
In my voice. Yeah, all the time. We always, every time we go to the store, people say, well, you're not from here, are you? But we moved up here in September of 2013. Our background is campus ministry. So we were actually at the University of Louisiana in Lafayette, which is our alma mater, for about 9 years before we came up here. And college ministry has always been our passion. And our kids. So we have 2 kids. Andrew is 15. He will love the fact that I'm on the radio. And Ruthie is 11. And so when we moved up here in 2013, we were with another organization, a mission organization here in the state. And my husband was at Starbucks near the one that's right there at Lake Otis and Tudor. And because we love college students, he just gravitates toward them. And there were a bunch in the coffee shop. And so he struck up a conversation and said, do you guys have anything on campus, where you can have Bible study or anything? And they said, no, we don't. And so he came home and told me that, and we were both really struck because what has made my relationship with Christ is a campus ministry. I wouldn't be where I am if I did not have that. And so we began praying for God to send somebody to UAA. Since that time, there's several campus ministries at UAA. But we just continued praying, and then God opened the door of January of last year for us. It's really funny. We had been praying for God to send somebody.
Right.
And, of course, he says, sure, I'm going to send you. But we were so excited about it because our whole entire family loves college students. And so the whole process that you have to go through in order to get on UAA campus, we had to find a staff, what do you call them?
A sponsor.
A sponsor. Yeah, we had to find a sponsor. That was difficult. To find a professor or anybody that was a believer was really hard.
Wow.
And then you have to have your key leaders before you even begin your club, and then you have to be voted in by the club council, which is one representative from every club at UAA. So we had all these hurdles to jump, and God just was there every single moment. And so we kicked off in August of this past year, and God has grown our ministry, and we have students that are committed, and our prayer is for a revival to happen in our city and state, and that it will begin at UAA with college students. So
just August of this last year,
yes.
2016.
Yes, wow. August 2016.
That is awesome.
Yeah. Yep.
I met Scott last August at Fusion.
Yes.
And he loves Diet Coke,
Yeah.
by the way.
Diet Coke or Coke Zero, given the day.
And I don't think he's met a stranger.
No, he's never met a stranger.
He was having conversations with everybody.
Yes.
Everybody and anybody. The entire Fusion time. I know he somewhere had to stop talking to individuals and then go teach a class.
Yes.
Because I know he taught several classes.
Yeah. He actually taught on the transition from high school to college and what that looks like, and encouraging students that are seniors in high school to go ahead and get plugged into a campus ministry.
So how does a student at UAA or maybe a senior in high school, how do they get involved in your program, your ministry?
Well, Scott has gone to several of our churches to, first of all, to let students know that we're there. One of the ways that they get plugged in, that they find out who we are, is at every event that UAA has, where it's Get On Board Day, if that's even what it's called. I'm not sure what it's called here, where the campus introduces the students to all the different clubs that are available. We're there. Scott is there. Scott's on campus just about every day. He's in the student union. We have a Facebook page, Mosaic AK. We have all of the things that you need for technology. And a lot of it is word of mouth. Our goal is to find leaders who will then help us reach the campus through their classes or anything. And so, we go to the crossing, so we advertise it there at the crossing. And you've met my husband. He could talk to the wall and he would be completely comfortable. And so wherever we go, whatever we're doing, he will find college students. And then we also encourage moms and dads or anybody that knows college students or high school seniors to send them our way. He's really good. He networks really well with student pastors in the area. And so he's friends with them all. He meets with them for coffee. And we want to serve the student pastors in any way that we can, and then turn around and we want to serve those students, because our goal is to help students know Christ, to point them to the local church, first of all, to build the local church, and also to connect them to like-minded believers on the campus and in the community. And then we also want to raise up students who live a mission lifestyle. And so whatever we can do to partner with student pastors, student ministers, we'll do that. So Scott's good at networking.
Do you meet like every week as
yes,
a group?
Absolutely. So we do not have a building. No campus ministry at UAA will have a building. Our background is we had a building, and so students would come to the building. We don't have that. What we do have is every Tuesday night we have what's called The Gathering, and we meet at the Student Center, the Student Union on campus at 7 o'clock. And then so we'll have worship, and Scott will speak. We do games, get to know you kind of stuff, and then we'll go out to eat afterwards. We also do, they come to our house once a month, which is why I don't need more kids, because I have them coming. And so we would love to have them over to our house. One of our biggest desires is for this generation of leaders, of future leaders, to see how a Christian family operates. So many of our students in the past and now come from broken homes, or they have never seen a family operate. And so our home is our main place of ministry. So we want them in our home as often as possible. So we don't only just meet on campus on Tuesdays. They're over once a month on Fridays. It's called Hanging with the Belmores. And they get us as messy as we are, both of our kids and our dog, and we feed them and we play games or we'll go out. And then we have small groups on Sunday evenings for girls and Thursdays, and then there's a men's small group. So there's something for every student. If they can't make it Tuesdays, then there are other opportunities for them to get plugged in. So.
And how many would you say attend these different opportunities?
It's so funny. When we began, we had no idea how many students. We knew we had our leaders. You have to have 5. So our first Tuesday night gathering, Scott and I both looked at each other just thinking, we may not have anybody. We don't know. We know God called us to do this, so we just have to wait and see what he does. And we had close to 30 on the first night.
Really?
Wow.
We were completely blown away. And so we kept that number 30. And for the first semester, we were at IF this weekend. And so the whole idea of not working so hard to go big, but to go deeper and be intentional with the small that God's given you, we were still surprised. And we kicked off the first of the semester for this one, and we had about 25. And last Tuesday, I couldn't even count. I don't know if we had close to 40 or 45. They just kept coming in. Students that we had never seen before. But because They've gotten to know Scott, and we have a new staff member, Logan. She's up here working with the girls because they're there every day just pouring into the students. So we're growing, and we're just looking at each other in complete awe. But we knew that there was a definite need on this campus for students to know Christ, and he's bringing us the students.
That is so encouraging. I'm so happy to hear that. Would you say that there's anything unique to this campus of students compared to other campuses that you've been on?
We are not in the South, for sure. Campus ministry from where we come from is huge. And you have different varieties of campus ministries. And also the universities in the South provide space, or there's a space around the physical buildings of the campus for a building, for whatever ministry. And it's just, that's part of the environment, that's part of the culture of the campus. And there's also a huge sense of community on all the other campuses that we're familiar with. UAA is unique in that it is a commuter campus, but there's only 1,000 students that live on campus, and the campus itself is very interesting. You've got Providence in the middle,
Exactly.
the dorms are on one end, and the classrooms are on the other, and there's not a huge sense of community on the campus. So that has been very interesting because from my experience being a college student a long time ago and being a part of a campus ministry, that was everything to me. That was my family. And so to come into a campus where these students, they go to class and they leave. It's lonely. It appears to be very, very lonely. We've heard that from a lot of students. And so that's been a challenge, but it's also been an answer to prayer because there are now multiple campus ministries that are providing that community. So you have students that move from villages, that move from wherever, that come to this big city compared to Soldotna and Kenai, where it's overwhelming and the campus is so disjointed and spread out, and they're finding a family. They're finding a group that they can belong to and that will be there for them for 4 years or however long it takes them to graduate. Depends now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It is a very different campus.
That is interesting.
Would you say that loneliness is probably the number one issue that they will come and talk to you about? Or I'm mainly talking about the girls.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. When you don't, we have to feel connected. I'm 41 years old, and I don't know where I would be without my community. And I'm not talking about my flesh and blood family. I'm talking about my community of believers. And so some of these students, one of our students, if you're quiet and you're not like my husband who could talk to a tree, and it's hard for you to make friends, it's uncomfortable, I guarantee you, if no one reaches out and grabs you and intentionally pours into you, pulls you into your community, you will have 4 years of loneliness. And so, and dorm life is, from what I know of it, the idea is to build community, but it doesn't happen most of the time. And I know here you've got girls that come in for a semester and they leave, girls that come in for a year and they leave. And then with a lot of our girls, their schedules are not the same as their dorm mate, of their suite mate. So we've got several that never see their roommate. So there's no community there. And I think the worst thing is to be living in a dorm room with 4 other girls, 5 other girls, and you feel alone. So that's where we come in, and we want to provide just community and family, walking alongside them in this journey.
Cammie and I have talked to many women all over the city of Anchorage and basically the state of Alaska, and we will ask them a lot of questions, but one thing that we hear continuously is that they're lonely.
Absolutely.
They're very lonely. That's even within the church body. They're lonely. And my opinion is that we, as mature, I like that word, I'm not going to use older, Christian women, we need to be very sensitive to that and walk alongside them or draw them into our conversations. do you give your leaders training on this, or do you talk to your leaders and make them aware of this? I'm just wondering what the process is, how you go about drawing this little girl that is scared away from her parents and she has no friends. She's very quiet. What do you do specifically to draw her into other conversations?
Well, I wouldn't say we trained our leaders, but we meet with them one-on-one. Scott does most of that, and just him pouring into them and mentoring them and discipling them, and the encouragement is that they do the same, and then modeling that. And so a couple of things that we do in terms of being very intentional to meet new people is we do evangelism on the campus. But that's not bringing a track and handing them out like you would hand out, free water bottles. But it's inviting them to the table. There are different areas in the student union where Scott will different ministries or even clubs will set up places around, and Logan will be there and Scott will be there and our worship leader Jacob will be there, and it's just engaging with the students that come up to the table. Or Scott's real good about noticing the one that won't come or the one that just seems to be very quiet, and so we'll do it that way. And then when they come in on Tuesdays for the gathering or even to our home, Scott and I try to be very intentional to encourage another student. Hey, why don't you go meet this person? This is her name. This is his name. I really think that you guys would hit it off. You've got a few things in common. So it's not always the old person, the over 40, doing that, because we've always been trained. You want to work yourself out of a job, because the Mosaic is not about Scott. It's not about me. It's really about training up these leaders to reach that next generation. And so just encouraging and modeling. I wish I could say we did a training, but my fear is that things become a checklist and, okay, I've met my shy person for the week, but to be just more intentional. And then our girls that live in the dorms, we have a small group that meets in the dorm in East Hall, and that's been really neat. This is the second semester, and it's already grown. And because it's held in a common room in the dorm, it's very open for anyone to be invited. So it's not off campus. And, you can come in your slippers and your pajamas. And that is another way to welcome those girls that normally would not show up to a big crowd. And with a big crowd, I'd be intimidated. I tend to stand back if I don't know people. So that's how we encourage our students to reach out intentionally in those situations.
I know something that I myself have prayed and asked God for is to make me aware of the people surrounding me.
Yeah.
And to nudge me if there is a young lady or a woman that is struggling or that maybe needs a hug or an encouraging word. Yeah. Help me to see her, because I am really bad about being completely focused on what I'm doing, and I don't pay attention to the left of me or the right of me. I've got a goal in mind, and I'm going towards that goal.
Right.
So I've asked him to help me change, help me to see what's going on around me, help me to see the people.
Right.
Because we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard, and we want somebody to notice us. And so I want to be that person. I want God to help me see who's around me.
Absolutely.
And who needs some help.
Right.
Some encouragement.
I think it's, to kind of overuse the phrase of blessing in disguise, but I think it's interesting that, you say that UAA kind of lacks community, but in a sense, it's neat that this really is one of the only opportunities to have community. And that's something that crosses the boundaries of really any, background or belief system, that a person needs community. And so I guess the prayer and the hope would be that it would just draw these students in just seeking community alone, and they just stumble across finding out about Jesus.
Absolutely. We have a student who's a Muslim that has come because he wants community. And my husband is very good. Our previous campus, we had several students, grad students, that were from Iran that were very verbal about, I'm not going to become a Christian, but I need this fellowship. And so we've always welcomed, it doesn't matter, okay, we're not going to beat you over the head, but we want to love on you. And so just come and hang out. And it's just been it's just interesting. It's more than interesting. It's completely God to see what he is doing. And, the other clubs, there are other clubs on the campus, but their goal is different from ours because we want our students for 4 years, but our goal is past 4 years. We want them to be leaders. We want them to be followers of Christ. We want them to, as they are going, make disciples, like you said, to notice the person in the grocery store that's lonely. One of the things that has always bothered Scott and I is that mentality that, I'm not called to be in vocational ministry. I'm coming to campus because I want to be a nurse or a doctor or an engineer or I don't know, whatever. So I'm not called to vocational ministry. And we encourage them, yes, you have. Because no matter where you are, as you are going, you make disciples. So encouraging them that in your workplace, whatever degree you are here for, that you are going, that's your mission field. And we also encourage them, unlike other clubs, is God has placed you at UAA for a purpose. And the first purpose is to go and make disciples. And this is your mission field. The second priority is your degree. The first is nowhere else in life do you have that amount of time, the benefits and the opportunities of really you're not truly adulting. We always tell them, just wait till you graduate from college. But they have 4 years to make an impact, to change the world around them, to change lives. And that is just very exciting to see, and to see it happening here and what it can do to Anchorage and how it can change them when they go wherever they're going here in the city.
As you mentioned that I attended the IF gathering at the crossing, and one of the comments that have stuck with me is, I don't remember who said it, but your mission field, your mission ground is the area between your feet.
Exactly.
And I thought, whoa, it's right where you're standing. I have to ask this question since you work with so many young women. Do you ever hear the word authentic or real in your conversations?
Yes, I don't use the word authentic. I use the word real all the time. I'm kind of known for just being real and being honest. And you and I had this conversation the other day, and I had been thinking about it. And I even asked I asked Logan, who's our staff member, and then a couple of students, what comes to your mind when you think of that word authenticity? And for me, one thing that I have noticed that is, and you mentioned it even in the church, it's missing. We have such a deep desire for community, and for not big community, but for small community. We want to be seen. We want to be heard for who we are on the inside. But a lot of times we're afraid that if I do divulge what I call, as my husband likes to laugh at me, my hot mess, then I may run people off. I may be perceived as, well, you're not a good Christian, or you're not really who you said you are. And so our girls are struggling to be true to who they are, but more so be true to who God has called them to be, because society right now is saying, be true to yourself. That does not mean, it's not a biblical truth. That's not what they're talking about. And so I have several girlfriends. I have one group that we're on a Voxer chat, and they are two girls that I am completely real with. I have different pockets of girls, of women. And the one thing that we have always talked about is there is a difference between being authentic and being who you are and needing someone to just join you in your mess and justify your sin. For me, to be authentic means to be who I am in Christ, no matter what my mess is, but to not wallow in that, and to have someone who will embrace me for who I am, but also push me to be more of who God has called me to be. And what we're trying to model and show our students, our girls, is how important that kind of community is, because accountability is what holds the church together. So I love being real, but I find myself having to be careful that I'm not, and they said it at IF, I'm not blogging about my sin, because I want people to applaud me because I am real. Living for Jesus, we are to constantly be on our knees and making sure that we look like Him and not an easier version of what He's called us to be.
Mm-hmm.
So,
how do you balance your time? And there's that question. But how do you're reaching out to all of this group as a whole? But then I'm sure spending a lot of time with the young ladies that are in the group.
And I
then you've got
homeschool my kids.
Yeah, wow.
Balance is not my favorite word. I tell you what, I wake up every morning and I think, I wish that you truly could balance everything, but I think something is always a little bit off. You always have to pour your time in more into one thing than the other. I was taught years ago that you can only do a few things well and not to do a ton of stuff poorly. And so for me, balance comes with, the first thing is to make sure that my time in the Word is where it needs to be. That without my relationship with Christ, all of the other stuff that I do is just stuff. And that includes my husband and homeschooling my children and working with college students and even at my church. So one of the reasons why I love having such a small community of good friends who hold me accountable is they do ask me the hard questions. Are you in the Word? Are you off balance? Are you doing too much? I tend to get trapped up in doing good things, because
Right.
it's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
But my mantra is, if I say yes to one thing, then I'm saying no to something else. And I just encouraged a friend of mine that they're, figure out what your I forget how I said that. I encouraged her because she was asking me that same question. How do you know when to say yes? How do you know when to say no? And I said, you need to figure out the things that you'll never say no to. And mine are my time with the Lord, my husband, and my family, and Mosaic, my ministry. But those three things, and so everything after that, I have to figure out, is it going to take away? Now, we're women. We know that there are some days things are going to be crazy.
Yes. Sure.
But if I didn't have my girlfriends to keep me on track, I'd be completely tipsy-turvy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
balance is not my favorite word.
I can
Everything looks great on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Like I could have a
Exactly.
really nice checklist and a
Uh-huh.
whole big routine, but will it happen that way? I don't know.
My calendar can look really nice.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Looks all
Color-coded
neat.
and
Yes.
everything.
But sometimes it just stays that way.
It does.
Because life happens. Things
Right.
come up that has to take priority over whatever I have planned or
Right.
whatever I've scheduled.
But I've also learned that if I do not build in white space, and not just in my week, but in my day, then I miss the things that God has for me. One of the things
Exactly.
He asked me this past year to drop a couple of things that were really good. And I was like, why are you asking me to do that? And I realized in September why. Our home is our place of ministry. I also have a teenager. I need more time to spend with him. And then we have students who will just call and say, can I come over? Can I come over and study for tonight? Can I come stay the night? Can I just come sit on your couch? I just need the noise of your family. And if I did not build in white space or margin, I would have to say no to those things. And so being able to say yes to people, to relationships, and not a schedule is where, it's taken a long time for the Lord to get me there. But that has helped me this year. So
How do you think, I'm just going to spit this question out, not knowing if it even makes sense, but how do you think that you conveyed to these students that your home was that available? Because I find it so awesome that a student knows that they could reach out to you and ask that question.
we tell them
You
straight
just
up.
flat out tell
We flat out tell them, you are always welcome here. Our home is not our own. We have them over all the time. And so they know that, and that's just, it's not for everybody. Not everybody is comfortable or has gotten to that place. And then my children are so welcoming to college students. And those are their brothers and sisters. And those students have poured in so richly to my kids that I don't know how many times we've had students that will text my daughter, she's 11, from Louisiana or even from here. And so we just tell them our family is your family. And Scott's real good about the girls. He's like, if your daddy does not live here, my job is to offer you that protection, to be that father figure. And then I'm, I can't be their physical mama, but I mean, they come to me for help, and you just always have the coffee pot on. And even if I'm in my pajamas and my house is a mess, they know you just come over. Just come over.
And then I want to ask you this too, and this is probably kind of a tough question and probably not the best one for the end of the show, but I want to throw it out there real quick. How do you love a student through a time where, they're living in sin? You clearly know that they are, but how do you balance challenging them and holding them accountable, but also loving them in the trenches?
That's a very good question. You just do what you just said. You speak the truth. You don't ever compromise that, but you love, and I don't know how many times I've picked up people in my car and gone for a drive, or spent an hour texting, or just having someone in my home, and you love, you don't judge, but the scripture, we just constantly encourage that it's your plumb line, it is your truth, and not push. We've had a student who has said, I don't understand why you still want to be around me because of the choices that I've made. And my response to her was, if I could grab you by the hand and yank you to where I know you need to be, I would. But then you would not have a heart after Christ. So I'll just link arms with you and walk side by side. And when you fall, I'll help pick you up. We don't make decisions for our students. And we can never take the place of Christ, but just that, I mean, it's what Jesus did. He just loved them in spite of who they are. He loves me in spite of who I am. So.
Yeah, that's the key. And I know Betty and I, too, have been talking a lot about that. It's, we all can celebrate the testimony on the other side when they're up there sharing it. We celebrate. We love it. But what are we doing while that testimony is being built and that story is being written? Are we still loving them while that's happening? And I think that that's something that we all could be more challenged with to do instead of throwing the rock.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Well, none of us are without sin.
That's right.
Right.
Just my sin looks a little bit different than yours.
Right.
And the young lady's sin, the younger girl's sin looks a little bit different than mine. That's the only difference.
Right.
And I look at it this way: God loves me enough. He still loves me. Regardless of what I do, he still loves me. So because he first loved me, then I can love him, but I can also love.
That's right.
I can also love these girls.
That's right. And I always tell my son, you're one choice away from that being your life as well. So we cannot look down at all.
That is so true. Well, I'll tell you what, it has been a great conversation. Thank you so much.
Can I ask you to give us your contact information for our listeners?
Please.
If there's some students listening or parents that would like to have their daughters or sons contact you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on Facebook. Dana, my maiden name is McGoy. You can't pronounce it. It's McGaughy, Belmore. So you can you can find me on Facebook, and then my email is d.belmore, BELMORE, 4 @gmail.
And Mosaic has a Facebook page,
Mosaic AK has a Facebook, yes, absolutely, and they can just search that and find us there.
And what if there's a young man that wants to reach Scott? What is his?
Captain Belmore, BELMORE @gmail.com.
That's
and then
so
also on
Facebook.
I know. And then on Facebook, he's Scott Belmore, so you can find him there.
Perfect. Great. Thank you so much
Thank
again,
you so
Dana.
much for having me.
And that's another Living Well radio program. We want to thank you for joining us. And you can find us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. on KATB 89.3 in Anchorage, as well as KJLP 88.9 in Palmer. You can also find us online at katb.org. And we want to connect with you on our Facebook page at Living Well Radio.